So I will show you also one of the improvements to the build system with the build variants. So here is the sample of the build that is using build variants, first improvement that we have done is that we have improved error messages for the post protest step when we are applying build variants. So just to remind you that we have different TCGS files, and when you are using build variants as the build system, then we have additional steps when evaluating these TCGS files. So we can make user-defined settings and apply different platform-specific settings in pre-process stage. In pre-process stage, we can define some global variables. Then we are evaluating the TCGS itself, and then we have a post-process stage where we actually can update the general settings specified in the TCGS with some platform-specific settings. In this example, I have prepared a very simple build system. So now we are running build, and as a build variant, I'm configuring the language, the target language that is used for the messages from my application. So now I have two selections, English or French. So first I will select English as the target language, and now we are compiling. We have selected English, and we are compiling with English settings. So, and if we will run what we got, so now let's just check and see the messages coming out. Yes, so now we see that we have a message here, hello world, in English. So now I will clean. Actually, currently, when you are using build variants, currently this is one of the current limitations that you should clean before applying a new platform and a completely new build variant. So I will now clean. So what is, did I do any? Yes, it was cleaning. And now I will build once again, and I will select a different language, and I will run build. And so it has automatically applied another settings. And if we check now, run, what will happen? So yeah, so now you see the same message, but it is in French. Bonjour tout le monde. So hello world, but in French. So how did I make this? You see that I have here a special project, and it has transformation configurations. So one transformation configuration is applying these English settings, and another one is applying French settings. And actually, during so one of the improvements that we have done during the sprint is that we have allowed now in the build variants to update prerequisites. So here we have the main TCGS builds, and by default we do not have any prerequisites. But to apply this French or English settings, we need to update the prerequisites and actually to select and to add either we want this or this one. And now this is possible to in the post process to update these prerequisites. So this is how it is implemented. So here in the function post process, so I'm also changing compile arguments. So I'm adding compile processor define, and I'm defining the language itself, and the language is selected in the user interface. So here, when you run builds, here in the user interface, when you select here the language, then this your selection comes here, and as a parameter appears in this post process. And here in the post process, I'm just updating the prerequisites, and I'm selecting one of these two, either build English or build French. So now let's check what is happening in the printout. So here I have added here, you see, I have added some information messages, and in the pre-process I'm just printing info. So in the pre-process we don't have a TC evaluated, so here I have just printed an info, then we are evaluating the TC itself, and then I'm printing here that in the post process that we are adding special platform specific prerequisites for this current build. And we get additional two additional messages that TC prerequisites for this TCJS have been changed in post-process step, and also we are reloading TC closure. So we are loading additional TCs for build TCJS, and this is an important thing. So if you will be using this updating of prerequisites in your build system, then you should be careful and not update it too often, or because so not you should have only one. We recommend to have only one assignment where you are setting the new prerequisites, because each time you are updating this field prerequisites, the system will trigger loading of additional things, of additional TCJS. This is done because initially when we do evaluating of the TCJS structure, we don't know, so we are evaluating only those prerequisites which are already specified and fixed for the model. But if you have some platform specific prerequisites that you are adding in post process, then additional evaluation of additional TCJS will be started. So that's why you should understand that it will be additional evaluation of TCJS, and you should do this only once, and using this assignment. So you just assign a new list of prerequisites. In my case, this is just one prerequisite, but if you had some of the prerequisites defined in the TC itself, then you should take the prerequisites from the TC and add your platform specific ones and do this assignment. So let's also check in general how this is working, this printout. So in the capsule, I am just using this. So I'm using this language, which I'm defining in compile arguments. So here in compile arguments, I'm defining this language, and when we will be compiling, then it will pick up the correct class from one of the prerequisites. Also, I will now return to this build, and we also need an include. So when you are adding a prerequisites, we are automatically adding include path to the folder with this prerequisite. So I will now do clean, and we can check what is happening. Once again, we can check what is happening during build. So here you see that we have selected French, and we have added a prerequisite, and we are building the classes from this French prerequisite. And also here in the output, we see that we have added we have added this library for the linking. So this is all done after you have applied a new prerequisite. So you have a new library, then in the include path you have an additional include, and also you see that we have added this define, which we are using in the implementation. And also one trick that I have used is that for this include, we also need an include to the French H, so to see the class definition itself. And what I have done is that I'm also updating here in the TCGS, I have added it to the common preface. This is one of the possible solutions. So I was thinking how this can be implemented. This is one of the possible solutions. If you're adding this to the common preface, then it will be included to the unit here. It will be always included to the unit folder, and will be available after you have selected this prerequisite. We are including this unit from the prerequisite, and the unit is including the necessary header. So that's why by just clicking this now in the user interface, by just selecting from this drop down one of the languages, all other steps, include paths and prerequisites and linking, all other is done automatically by the post process and by my build system. This is how it is working, and now I need to mention that it is not allowed to change all of the fields in the post process. For example, the type, TC type, the type of your transformation configuration. Of course, it cannot be changed. It has been fixed once, and you shouldn't change it in post process. And for that, in case if someone occasionally would try to change it, I have added special checks that some of the fields, if they're changed in post process, then you will get an error message. So now let's see how it will look like. And here you see we have two new error messages. It is not allowed to modify TC type. So we were trying to modify TC type for the top TC, and it says that it is not allowed. And it also prints the TC for which this update is being done. And also parents. the parents also cannot be changed in post-process, since you have already inherited and initialized all of the fields according to the parents, and it is not possible to change this. But I don't think that someone it is needed to change these fields, but just in case, we have added these checks, and you will get the error messages if you will try to modify the fields which are not allowed to modify in post-process. So that's all about the build variants and build improvements. Do you have any questions?